Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Trek. And today is a very special day because it's my 100th episode of Trek Tuesday. And because you've all been so patient, amazing, and supportive, I wanted to do something extra special. It's been a lot of work, let me tell you, but I present to you what I lovingly call the Seska Saga. Now, this isn't every episode the character appears in, but it is the 7 episodes that progress her story, excluding Shatters, as I've already covered that one. I'm joined for this milestone episode once again by Nerd World Empire. But before we get going, do you like the idea of space travel but want something more down to earth? Then check out The Practical Passport, a travel blog created by my awesome big sister who first travelled and organised trips in a pre-smartphone era, which was no easy task. Because of this, she wanted to create an honest, real guide to help new travellers plan their first big adventure or more seasoned travellers to learn new hacks on a budget. So when you're planning your next trip, grab your passport and make sure it's practical. Seriously, go show my sister some love. Links in the description. And let's get going. We begin the saga with the landing party fluffing around with potential food sources. Neelix, are you pointing at that guy's dick? On Voyager, Tom notices another ship in orbit, so Tuvok lights it up, and turns out it's Kazon, so everybody panic! As the away team meet up, Chakotay notices that Seska is missing, and heads off to find her in this spooky cave. Watch out for the Null! After the pair jump scare each other, the Kazon open fire, hitting Chakotay, and into the credits we go. Having successfully escaped the Kazon, Seska visits Chakotay with his favourite soup, which turns out she stole from the kitchen, so Chakotay tells her off and threatens punishment.
You put me in the brig? After all we've been through?
And she gives him a snuggle before sauntering off all flirty-like. The bridge gets a distress call from the Kazon ship that was at the planet, but Neelix thinks it's a trap, so Janeway orders security scans as they head towards it, and an away team boards. Yeesh, what the hell happened? Oh great, they bought Seska. What could possibly go wrong? Nice scarf, dude. Chakotay orders the survivor beamed away as B'Elanna notices the cause of the disaster is Federation technology. They all go stare at the Kazon, who the doc says has mutated, so cool, he can join the X-Men. And Janeway is furious the Kazon have Federation tech, which Tuvok suggests could mean one of the crew can't be trusted. I wonder who? I don't know which part of Janeway is more angry, her eyes or her hair. Tuvok thinks it's Seska, but Chakotay defends her, and Janeway is confused, so they have a meeting in engineering on how to get back their technology, which of course, Seska is there for, and Chakotay stops her from going on the next away mission, so she calls him out on it, and he tells her she's sus. She stomps off and heads to sickbay to stare at the Kazon, where Kes asks her about a gap in her medical records, but she explains it away with a childhood blood disease, while these three stand uncomfortably close to one another while discussing a secret message that was sent to the Kazon from one of the engineering team. I wonder who? Another Kazon ship comes into the area as Seska beams to the wreck ship to get the technology back. And after Tuvok and Chakotay have a little spat over it, they hear a scream, so Harry beams Seska to sickbay, into the same bed the Kazon was just in. Where's he gone? Carey is called in front of the captain and interrogated about the Kazon because the message was sent from his engineering station, and he points the finger at Seska, so Janeway sends him to his room. The Kazon calls, it's Marge Culler, played by this happy chappy, who, as well as acting, is a stunt performer and writer, and he wants to know what happened, so Janeway gives him an earful and goes to whisper to the doctor, while Culler's aide kills the patient.
Get off this ship.
The Doc and Kes tell Janeway that their tests on Seska have concluded that she's been genetically altered and is in fact Cardassian. Dramatic zoom. Chakotay refuses to believe it and wants to question her himself.
You were working for her? Seska was working for them. Was anyone on board that ship working for me?
And while B'Elanna heads out to get the technology, Culler calls in a strop.
I don't like bullies, and I don't like threats. And I don't like you, Culler.
To Janeway's surprise, B'Elanna is in and out pretty quickly, and she concludes that what caused the explosion is one of Voyager's food replicators.
Somebody on board Voyager gave them what they needed. I guess they just didn't know what to do with it.
Chakotay goes to Seska and asks about her being a Cardassian, which she says is a mistake, as she had a bone marrow transplant from a Cardassian woman as a child.
You must think I'm horrible.
Yes, and she clearly bullshits him, and he promises they'll sort things out. But out in the hall, him and Tuvok conspire. They chill in engineering until they catch someone tampering with the logs using Seska's code, making them think it's Carey trying to frame her. So Chakotay heads to sickbay again and tells her it's over. He says her double bluff didn't work because she used the console in sickbay like a dumbass. Oh, hey, Ayala! And the doctor says he's not an idiot. A bone marrow transplant couldn't make her read as Cardassian. Seska says she did this all for the crew to give them a leg up in the Delta Quadrant, and her and Janeway have a shout-off before she beams to the Kazon ship, and Janeway decides, screw her. Chakotay and B'Elanna's downtime is interrupted by news of a beacon using a Federation signal, so they all excitedly investigate in case it's Starfleet. But they get attacked by the Kazon, who somehow have their shield frequency and send a little ship to go crash into Voyager. Shaky, shaky! The Kazon get aboard and yoink something from the transporter room, so Voyager tractors them, and of course it's Cullen and Seska, who's rocking her Cardassian physiology, and she helps the Kazon to escape. They all go and have a nose at the shuttle, and Janeway lectures Neelix over how important it is to get the technology back, but Chakotay warns that Seska has probably laid another trap. Cullen shows off his new toy to another Kazon sect, while Chakotay bitches to B'Elanna about how much Seska's betrayal sucks. Ugh, the Kazon are having an argument that argues on for some time, until Seska steps in.
Listen to your woman, Cullen.
In their pursuit of the Kazon, Voyager comes across some floating debris. It's pretty horrifying.
There is no doubt that this man and his unfortunate companion were beamed into space.
Yeesh. And Neelix points out this was intentional. Double yeesh. When Chakotay fails to show up for a meeting, Janeway discovers he's no longer on board, having taken a shuttle for a joyride, and she is furious. Seska and Cullen have a little supervillain meeting where they plan to get all the sects to gang up on Voyager, while B'Elanna goes to Janeway to ask her to go easy on Chakotay because he was in love with Seska, and is taking this all very personally.
Chakotay is lucky to have such a good friend.
Chakotay sneaks up on Cullen's ship, but Seska catches him and taunts him before things go to shit and he beams aboard, destroys the transporter tech, and surrenders. Or he could have shot her in the face. Instead, he gets the crap kicked out of him and has to listen to Seska gloating and flirting and stropping around the place.
You may not give me the command code, but when Cullen gets through with you, you'll wish you had.
Oh, sod off, Space Karen. B'Elanna begs Janeway to go after Chakotay, despite him sending a message to treat him as lost. And she agrees, but better hurry because he's being smacked around again. However, he's super sassy, telling Cullen about his relationship with Seska, which gets him a needle to the neck.
When Seska's through with you, she's gonna kill you.
Seska isn't impressed and she needles him in the neck, while B'Elanna comes up with some crazy-ass plan to beam Chakotay out, and then Cullen gets visitors who are less than friendly, so he shows off his prisoner. The plan is pretty techno-babbly, but basically they can't get a lock on Chakotay, and a firefight breaks out, pissing off the other Kazon. But not as much as Janeway's latest plan, which is to kidnap the lot of them. Wait a second, that looks like Durst. He died back in season 1. With no other choice, Cullen agrees to free Chakotay so Janeway can give him a good telling off.
How do you expect me to keep order when the first officer takes it upon himself to run off like some cowboy because he decides it's a good idea?
But things get worse when Seska calls, dropping the bombshell that she's extracted his DNA and impregnated herself. Thanks for that, bitch! Voyager is under attack by the Kazon, and it's not a good situation, as consoles are exploding, the engines are offline, this guy's on the floor, and sickbay is inundated with casualties. Tom rushes off to help, and Kurt doesn't make it, so Chakotay suggests to Janeway that they act more like the Marquis to survive.
I don't think we can afford to keep doing business as usual.
Chakotay gives a touching speech at Kurt's funeral. Hey, Ayala! And afterwards, Lieutenant Hogan has a go at Janeway for her poor handling of the Kazon situation, and she is feral.
I'll destroy this ship before I turn any part of it over to the Kazon.
Wow, way to turn this funeral into a downer. Chakotay tells Janeway that she needs to be more flexible with the Starfleet rules and suggests making an alliance with one or two of the Kazon factions. She's not a fan. A quick visit to Tuvok and his flower arrangement, where he name drops Spock, gives her the answer she needs, and she announces her alliance plan to the senior staff, and Neelix mentions he actually has a Kazon friend nearby. Harry jokes they should form an alliance with Seska, and Janeway decides sure, why the hell not, so they contact her. Sudden ceiling jellyfish and space titties. Neelix goes to see his Kazon friend who is rather hostile and has him thrown out, so that was rather pointless. And speaking of, Cullen starts mouthing off in his meeting with Janeway, so she throws him out. So we're not making much progress here. Neelix gets shoved down some tunnels where he finds a group of Trabe prisoners, led by Mavis, who has called in help, but better hurry because Voyager is here to pick Neelix up. With the Trabe reinforcements acting as a distraction, the group enact their jailbreak and make it to Voyager, where Mavis fills Janeway in on the horrible history between the Trabe and the Kazon, while this butthole secretly tries to get in touch with Seska. Janeway decides to make an alliance with Mavis and his people, but he wants to take it one step further and try and unite all the Kazon, which Cullen and Seska argue over before she lies and says the baby is his. She convinces him to go to the meeting with an evil snuggle, while Voyager discovers someone is planning on attacking the leaders of the conference, so be careful everyone. Neelix super blends in with this room, as all the First Marches get their own introductions, and Cullen and Mavis eyeball each other. The meeting starts off okay, even though Cullen is pretty salty about the whole thing, but then suddenly Mavis wants to leave, and Janeway goes all Admiral Akbar and beams away as a Trabe ship opens fire into the room. Everyone survives, although Cullen is furious, and on Voyager, Janeway spits venom at Mavis before booting him off the ship and getting the hell out of there. We're gonna stop real quick at the episode Life Signs to get some context, where Tom shows up late and spouts some bullshit story, so Chakotay complains to Janeway, who tells him to deal with it himself. He goes to talk to Tom, who says the problem is him, rather loudly in front of everyone, which Jonas reports to the Kazon, who wants him to sabotage the warp coils. Tom shows up to his shift late again, so Chakotay tells him he's been replaced, which results in Tom pushing him and getting tossed in the bridge. Right, with that out of the way, Neelix has started a new breakfast show, which he promises will always be positive, before immediately gossiping about someone's relationship. Harry says the show is fine, but needs more actual news, before Neelix gets a call from an old friend who says he's picking up a crew member in a few days for a permanent transfer. So he goes to Janeway about it, and she admits that it's Tom who'll be leaving. Neelix finds him packing and ranting about how he can't wait to leave, so have a hug, and he gives a lovely send-off for Tom on his new show. Bye dude! During a staff meeting about Tom's replacement, Jonas calls with a problem in engineering, so Taurus and Neelix, who wants content, rushes down there, where the problem quickly escalates and Jonas gets exploded in the face, along with this guy. Neelix wants to interview Jonas for his show, but is called to the bridge where he points out a planet nearby where they can get replacement stuff for the engines, before they get a call from the Talaxians, who say that the Kazon attacked them and took Tom. Seska saunters into this blue-lit room where she says she doesn't like him, but wants him to join her in overthrowing Voyager. Sure, bitch. But when her back is turned, Tom goes poking around the computer. Janeway's log says, screw Tom, the engines are more important, while Neelix figures out there must be a mole on Voyager and vows to uncover who. So he goes to engineering to look over the communication logs, where he's unfortunately left alone with Jonas. Jonas tries to convince him everything is fine, but Neelix finds gaps in the logs, so Jonas arms himself but is murder blocked by the doctor. Neelix takes his findings to Tuvok, who brushes off the matter, but he is insistent.
I believe someone on the ship has been making covert transmissions and erasing the evidence.
Tuvok says fine, leave it with him, now run along, but of course he can't leave well enough alone, and goes to Hogan for help, who pinpoints the incriminating logs to Tom's quarters. So Neelix broadcasts how much Tom sucks on his show, and Janeway is not happy. Tuvok says Tom has been framed since he investigated, and Chakotay is hella confused, so Janeway explains that this is all an elaborate plan to catch the mole, and Chakotay is pissed that he was kept out of the loop, and used for a convincing performance. Janeway tells Neelix to keep poking around, which is what Tom is still doing, until he discovers who the mole is right before Seska catches him, but he has an explodey backup plan and escapes. Neelix goes back to engineering, only to be left alone with Jonas again, while Tom gets jostled around and contacts Voyager. And this has always bugged me. He doesn't immediately tell Janeway who the mole is, and then gets knocked out. Neelix notices Jonas is being shifty and gets yelled at by him, and when he recovers, Tom finally tells on Jonas, who bitch slaps Neelix. Tom is transported aboard as the Kazon attack, and Neelix goes for the knees, causing a fight to break out, which results in Jonas getting vaporized. And Neelix is pretty chill about it.
Well, I'm going to have plenty of material for tomorrow's briefing with Neelix.
Dude, you just killed someone. Take a second. It's Brad Dourif who shows off his plant collection to Tuvok before Voyager gets a panicked message from Seska and her baby, begging for help before Cullen attacks her. Chakotay says he doesn't give a shit, but Janeway says, dude, that's your son, but inevitably leaves the decision up to him. So he goes on a vision quest to chat to his dad. Daddy Kolapak says it's great he has a kid and will make a good dad, but when Chakotay says he's not willing, he says he shouldn't have stuck his dick in crazy. And it's not the kid's fault.
He is your son, Chakotay, and he is a child of our people.
Well, I guess we're going after Seska. Neelix says there are Talaxians in the area willing to help. Harry has a trick with the sensors, and the doc suggests holographic ships. You know, just in case Seska turns out to be sneaky and evil. Imagine that. They come across a small Kazon shuttle with one survivor who says Seska is dead. Oh cool, I guess we're done here. Nah, we can't get rid of her that easily. So Chakotay wants to go after his kid after the Kazon story checks out, and he gives them the command codes for the Kazon defense net. Some random Kazon ship fires at them briefly, doing minor damage, and Tom says the Talaxians are no longer in communications range, which is a shame because Voyager has to shoo away more random Kazon attacks. Chakotay wants answers, so threatens their visitor. Wow, check out the pout on this guy! And yet another attack focuses on some random part of Deck 12.
It feels like we're being pecked to death by ducks.
Janeway wants to turn this ship around as the Kazon is shoved in quarters next to Sutar, and more Kazon ships approach, so Harry sets up his phantom ships on sensors. A firefight breaks out, so B'Elanna launches her holographic ships, but makes a boo-boo when she dumps the dock into space. And while Janeway gives orders to kick the shit into the Kazon, their guest faffs around and causes a massive explosion, which disables a lot of their systems. With Voyager in serious trouble, Tom sneaks off in a shuttle to go get the Talaxians, but doesn't make it very far. And with the Kazon boarding, Janeway orders an evacuation and a self-destruct, but the system damaged in all those random attacks won't allow it. The bridge is taken over. Oh, hey, Ayala. And here comes Cullen and of course Seska, who, no surprise, lied to Cullen about how she got pregnant. And Janeway gets bitch slapped.
You're even worse than she is.
Everyone is rounded up and marched away, except the Doctor hides, and Sutar gets missed. While Seska wants them to check what happened to Tom, and Voyager lands on some shithole planet, which is to be their new home. Their comm badges are taken away, and Cullen throws down a challenge.
A fitting end for a people who would not share their technology. Let's see if you manage to survive without it.
Which Janeway takes up as she organises the crew into different search parties in order to look for supplies. As Voyager readies for takeoff, some monster out of King's Quest 7 roams around and they meet the planet's native people. The Doctor reactivates, all confused, as Sutar peekaboos from the vent and Voyager flies away. Samantha and her baby are struggling, so Chakotay goes to help as the ground shakes and Janeway group finds a cave. Hogan also finds a cave with lots of bones outside, which Neelix wants collecting. And snap! Hogan is gone. Poor guy. Tom is in bad shape and gets attacked by the Kazon, but he manages to destroy them, and Janeway is pissed that Hogan is dead, and says the caves are off limits. Meanwhile, on Voyager, Seska tells the Doctor about the change in crew, which he says doesn't matter, before bursting Seska's bubble by informing her she failed to impregnate herself with Chakotay's DNA, and this is actually Cullen's baby. Look how smug he looks. Seska isn't happy. Bye, bitch! The Doctor stresses out about what to do before discovering Sutar is still on board and tells him to get to sickbay ASAP, while Janeway checks on Samantha and Chakotay epically fails to start a fire, which he's salty about, until he decides that Janeway's hairstyle would help. Neelix and Kes wander away from camp and get grabbed, while Tom contacts the Talaxians for help, and Sutar makes it to sickbay where he's not in the best mental state to take down the Kazon. Why don't you just due dambala them, dude?
One hologram and one sociopath may not be much of a match for the Kazon, but we'll have to do.
The aliens fight over their prisoners before Chakotay just full-on strides up to them and asks for Kes and Neelix back. The leader offers him a girlfriend, but Chakotay has had enough of relationship drama lately and takes his people.
We have to go now.
Shit, run everyone! Oh yeah, great Chakotay, go into the death tunnel, that'll help. Cullen is annoyed that the warp core is broken and the sensors aren't working, so Seska orders a search for intruders, causing Sutar to need to hide, while Naomi gets sicker and Janeway worries about Chakotay's team, who the aliens are trying to smoke out. They sneak through the tunnel with their expendable randos before finding a pit of questionable CGI, while outside, Janeway makes a plan, and Ayala gets a line.
Yeah.
Yes, King! They pelt the aliens with rocks, and Ayala gets to shout some stuff with B'Elanna, while this woman waves her arms around. And run, Ayala! Go, go, go! A rando slips and gets eaten as Janeway's team clears the entrance.
Move! Let's go! 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 Go!
And they manage to trap the creature and run away. Tom contacts the doctor saying they're mounting an attack soon, so he needs him to sabotage a system, while Sutar gets back having had to kill one of the Kazon, and he makes friends with the carpet. Kes reports the baby is sick as a volcano gets all spicy, while Seska threatens the doctor because he's not been honest.
Sticks and stones won't break my bones, so you can imagine how I feel about being called names.
Why is Seska's forehead dimple green? Is that the Cardassian equivalent of eyeshadow? The doctor winds Seska right up, claiming he sabotaged the ship alone.
You're more talented in the art of deception than you led me to believe.
I was inspired by the presence of a master.
The Talaxians attack as Seska shoots out the Doc's program, which sends an automated message to Sutar, bigging him up and instructing him to sabotage the system for Tom, which gives him the strength he needs to keep going. As both the Voyager crew and aliens try to escape the lava, one of the aliens gets stranded, so Chakotay hops down there, somehow surviving the heat, and rescues her, which brings the two people together. Sutar goes to town on everyone in engineering and gets fatally shot, but as he dies, he's able to sabotage the system, which overloads the weapons and disables the ship. A wounded Seska heads for her screaming baby and dies right next to it, so a devastated Cullen mourns her, takes the baby, and abandons ship. On the planet, their new friends help Naomi as Voyager flies in to pick them all up, and Tom tells Janeway of Sutar's heroics.
I offer you a Vulcan prayer, Mr. Sutar.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be a great help, Tuvok. And Chakotay says, bye bitch, one last time. B'Elanna sneaks around, and Chakotay chats to her in the turbo lift about a possible Maquis uprising.
And when the shooting starts, I'm going to need to know which side you're on.
Janeway hands over the ship to Chakotay and leaves for an away mission, which Chakotay tries to send Tuvok on too, but he doesn't want to. Chakotay checks in on B'Elanna before the mutiny begins, and while Harry is Starfleet to the end and attempts to fight back, he's shot by B'Elanna. He's probably fine. Oh, hey Ayala! The pair get into a firefight on Deck 2, but just when we thought we'd gotten rid of her, Space Karen strikes again, and they take on the mess hall when Neelix switches sides. Seska warns B'Elanna not to slip up as they round up the crew, and Chakotay gives them a choice: join the uprising or get yeeted out of the airlock.
Under my command, we won't let almighty Federation principles get in the way of opportunities.
Peekaboo, B'Elanna! Tom rocks up, so B'Elanna freezes the holodeck program, explaining she found it in the database but doesn't know who wrote it.
It's a kind of what-if story all about a Maquis mutiny.
B'Elanna says the creator has encrypted the program to conceal their identity, and Tom wants to give it a try, so let's start from the beginning. Tom agrees to side with Chakotay, although he is suspicious, and it plays out the same until the captain leaves and the firefight breaks out, where Tom flips the script by going against the mutiny and is grabbed by angry Ayala. Tom winds up in the brig where he suggests a jailbreak to Tuvok, who lectures him before Chakotay takes him to the cargo bay, where the same choices are given, and Tom switches sides again. Him and B'Elanna discuss their experiences with the program, which Neelix has also played, and turns out lots of people have had a go. Tom runs the program again, this time without constantly switching sides, and they detect a potential saboteur on board before Janeway rocks up and confirms it to Chakotay.
You've just threatened the wrong woman, Chakotay.
Before they start a firefight, so Chakotay blows them up. However, her and Holo-Tom transport aboard. Chakotay and Janeway shoot each other before Tom comes face to face with himself, and that's it. The program ends. Apparently unfinished by the author. Tom and B'Elanna tinker with the program trying to find out who wrote it, but they and Neelix have no luck. So Janeway asks about it in a staff meeting, where Tuvok admits he made the program as tactical training in case of a Maquis uprising, but abandoned it when he realized that Chakotay and the others were cool. He wants the program completely deleted.
With all due respect, Mr. Tuvok, loosen up.
But Janeway says it's great entertainment, and Tom volunteers to finish writing it. Tuvok is not impressed with Tom's rewrites, and B'Elanna wants him to turn it into a rom-com, while Neelix isn't happy with how his character is portrayed in the story. Tuvok and Tom argue over the program, so they go to the holodeck to start making changes, but the program goes kablooey, and they end up trapped in the brig. Seska rocks up and explains the real Seska booby-trapped the program, so they're now trapped with the safety off.
If I shoot you, and I am going to shoot you, you'll die.
So better start running, because the comms and transporters are down.
I guess we should have known Seska wouldn't let a little thing like death stop her from getting even.
Janeway calls the pair to help retake the ship, but Tuvok points out that Seska reprogrammed her and everyone else, so they should avoid all the characters. Oh shit, Janeway's dead, and the boys have to watch Seska and Chakotay make out before Tom gets shot. They go to sickbay, where the doctor attacks them and then throws them out.
Maybe we can go to the mess hall now and let the holographic Neelix burn my arm with a frying pan.
Janeway plans to tinker with the program herself, but better hurry because a spooky green gas cloud is on the way. So here, have this handy tool and motivational message to help you along. They're ambushed by Chakotay, where he takes them to the cargo bay for a familiar lecture before Seska plans to execute them, but Chakotay fights against her thanks to Janeway's interference, so Seska shoots him dead. The ship gets attacked, which allows them to get the upper hand on Seska, who sets the holodeck to self-destruct, but they could have just shot her before she finished the command. Tuvok gives Seska back her gun, so she stops the self-destruct and tries to shoot them, but vaporizes herself. Bye, bitch! The program ends and they all celebrate, with Chakotay asking not to be the villain next time. Okay, so that was a lot. So I'm going to hand over to Nerd World Empire for a bit while I take a breather.
Oh, the Cardassians. They do like to make good villains, don't they? From Gul Dukat to Garak being something of an anti-hero when you really think about it, to Seska. All fantastic villains. Now, real life is often stranger than fiction, and Star Trek likes to tell you a story, and a lot of the time they tell that story based on things from in real life, equating many of the factions and civilizations therein to real-world events, people, places, historical events, civilizations, etc. And the Cardassians are no exception. In many ways, the Cardassians are analogous to a communist-style regime, such as the Soviet Union or North Korea. They are very somewhat isolationist, very secretive, and can be quite militaristic, but are often portrayed as starved for resources, constantly hungry for power and more material, as well as being technologically inferior to the more progressive democratic states such as the United Federation of Planets, meaning the Cardassians again fill this void as being representative of how regimes like that don't tend to work. They devolve into militarism and they like to portray themselves as being perfect, when in reality they have all the same struggles and problems that everybody else has, but they are compounded by the fact that a government won't acknowledge them. In the Cardassians' case, it's things like being guilty until proven innocent, but you are never proven innocent because the state can do no wrong. Duty to the state before all else, before family, before anything is paramount to the Cardassians. And such you get people like Seska, true believers in a way, who will completely give themselves over to that mindset, to that way of life, to that civilization that they believe in and trust in so completely that they will abandon everything. And being extensions of that Soviet doctrine, the Soviets were historically, less advanced than Western powers like the United States. When it came to their technology, they were often found wanting. But one area they did excel in was intelligence gathering, with Soviet operatives, particularly the women, being infinitely more likely to utilize, shall we say, their more feminine attributes in order to achieve their goal. We see this with Seska. She latches on to Chakotay. Now, although it is implied she does have genuine feelings for him, it was clear this at first was nothing more than a means to an end, establish an emotional connection in order to better facilitate her integration into the Maquis and into his crew and to gather information. Cardassians are very good at this, much like the Soviets, who they are analogous for. And Seska is more than willing to use her femininity, as she does with Chakotay, and then later with Maj Cullen of the Kazon, again using her femininity to ingratiate herself with him and then manipulate him.
See, this is what Nerd World is for, reading deep into the stuff while I make jokes and point out dramatic zooms. I've never thought about the Cardassians in a big way because I've not religiously watched The Next Generation, and you know how I feel about Deep Space Nine. But Seska stuck out to me in a big way. She's often seen as a villain you love to hate, but personally, I don't like her. She's such a bitch, and I'm in the minority in loving Chakotay, so I hated what she did to him. And generally, she's mustache-twirlingly evil. I also get frustrated that Chakotay gets forgotten about after Seska leaves, so I retroactively hate her for that too. What I do like is the continuation of her story and how they set things up for future episodes. I'm not a fan of when they back-to-back it like the Xindi storyline in Enterprise or most of Deep Space Nine, but I like when a character recurs or you get a clever setup and payoff. They do it so well with Seska because she appeared in 13 episodes of the show, 4 of them being before the start of the saga, and 2 after the character had died. And Michael Jonas was in several episodes sending messages to the Kazon before he was caught. I think Seska and her storyline was a good insert for a Maquis mutiny. They could have easily gone down the route of having a division in the crew, but Seska became the stand-in for what could have been, which was cleverly explored in worst case scenario.
When we think about Seska, we don't think about some of her history. It is explored a little bit in some sources, particularly obviously Beta Canon novels, that she had actually been an undercover operative during the Bajoran Resistance. This explains why she took on the guise of a Bajoran who then infiltrated the Maquis. This makes sense as her history would have allowed her to already say to the Maquis, well, I already fought the Cardassians before during the occupation, and there would be records, criminal convictions, other such things of her activities during that conflict, which would make her integration into the Maquis much easier. One of the things we never consider about Seska is her name. Now, out of universe, Paul Robert Coyle is credited with inventing the name of Seska for the character, but in universe, Seska ain't her name. Think about it. If she had a Cardassian name, it'd be pretty damn obvious that she was actually a Cardassian spy. She might as well have not bothered having the surgery. Plus, this wouldn't fit with her backstory. We learn things about Seska that do not necessarily merge with the character. Again, her name would not be Seska. That is a Bajoran name, not a Cardassian one. Yet she continues to use it. We never actually find out her true name, as well as really her true origins. For example, she's also stated as having a brother. Now, was this brother another Cardassian operative that was also undercover? Did she actually replace a real Bajoran and just assume her identity? What exactly was the backstory there? We never really find out. Did the brother really exist? Was it completely made up? But anyone fact-checking, anyone actually looking into her history, particularly during the days of the Bajoran Resistance, would have discovered that the brother wasn't real, or that perhaps the brother as well was a Cardassian spy, which would have led to suspicion falling upon her as well. However, we do learn that in the mirror universe, the alternative version of Seska was a Cardassian operative called Glynn, who actually swapped sides, leaving the Alliance and joining the Terran Resistance, and ultimately was killed in that universe as well. But that is beta canon, so pinch of salt.
I have one gripe with the saga, and that's in basics. I mean, there are episodes stronger than others, and I really enjoyed basics. But while stranded on the planet, all their comm badges were removed, and along with it, their universal translators. And yet Neelix and Kes could still understand and be understood, which I feel was a missed opportunity. I always wanted an episode where the universal translator went down, and the crew had to work together, despite some of them not being able to understand. And this was the perfect take chance. I also wanted more Ayala, but that's just me. While I don't like Seska as a person, as a character and a storyline, she's quite compelling, and I like how the saga progresses. I enjoy worst case scenario, but I especially love the idea that Seska is tinkering from beyond the grave. That was my favourite part. I mean, you think this bitch is gone, but here she comes again to mess up everyone's day. Classic.
Seska is the role that Martha Hackett is most famous for in Star Trek, but she's actually played multiple other characters, see if you recognize them. She played Torul in Deep Space Nine, two-parter where she played a Romulan who was there to monitor the cloaking device that had first been installed aboard the USS Defiant, Commander Safi Larson in the video game Bridge Commander, Dr. Stevenson in Star Trek Elite Force, Qatar in Star Trek Klingon, as well as a few other assorted voices in other games.
So is Seska Star Trek's greatest villain? An argument could be made for it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. For me, she's definitely memorable if nothing else, and created some great tension and chaos in Voyager's early seasons. Well, that's it! I hope you enjoyed my 100th episode, and thank you for joining me on my space journey. Here's to many more episodes to come, and as always, I'm taking requests. If you want to be assimilated into my collective, then hit that subscribe button. I'll speak to you soon, and live long and prosper.